Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Linda Maria Frank, and she is the author of The Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island. So, Linda, how are you?
I'm good today, Don. How are you?
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I was a teacher for many years. I taught science. I taught forensic science, which is what got me into mystery writing. I've written a mystery series as well as The Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island, but I'm lucky enough to be able to present my books in schools and at fairs, and that seems to be my marketplace. In fact, it's a marketplace for authors, period. I also do a TV show where I interview authors just like you do. I learn a lot about how to get those books out there.
So tell us about this book.
The Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island was absolutely the most fun to write. It brings us back to 1947 to a remote island off the U.S. coast. A group of students calling themselves the Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island, who attend the only school on the island, St. Basilius, had raised money to buy toys for homeless kids on the mainland. The money is stolen, and then their clubhouse, the Buccaneers clubhouse, is burnt down. What's going on here? When the mother of one of the Buccaneers, who runs the local newspaper, the Foghorn, gets a threatening letter, the Buccaneers, against the admonitions of their adults, use their various and sometimes dubious talents to solve what the heck is happening on St. Frederick Island. It's a page-turning adventure that's fun and also funny.
Now, who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience?
My target audience is really young readers. I would say anywhere from 5th grade to 9th grade. The audience seems to expand into folks who enjoy the simpler version of the story that could appear in adult lit. My plots are really adult, but I gear them down to kids. And I think that's important for authors to do, to look at what the market is for that particular book. Find out from other authors, find out from your reviews if you're really hitting your market.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
Yes, adventure with an ethical code. Teamwork, talent, and tenacity. Kids need role models. If they could do it, why can't I? That's really what guided me when I was a kid. Gosh, if they can do that in that book, why can't I do it?
Now, if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
Use your talents, resources, and the important people in your life to meet challenges. And don't forget your sense of humor.
So, if you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
I looked, but I couldn't find anything that combines the elements in Buccaneers. It's another time period. It's a mystery. There's history in it, adventure. There's a Native American theme, and humor. I have a friend who's an author who's written a trilogy about an island that's off the coast of Long Island, Fire Island, and it's similar, but it's for younger readers, not as complex as my books. But that's the only one that I could find.
Tell us about some of the characters in the book.
Okay, so the characters in my book are a group of 8th graders. They form this group. It's supposed to be a secret group. They all have code names. They're run by the main character, whose name is Lily Dawes. Her code name is Sprocket. And I know, I gave them all like little machine names. But what they do is they meet in their clubhouse and they try to solve little problems that come up in school. But of course, when their money is stolen, they have to really find out, against the wishes of the headmaster in school and the nuns, they have to find out who did it. And so these characters really show various talents that they have. Some of them are great at math. Some of them are good at technical things. Others are just good at solving mysteries.
In your opinion, what makes a writer?
To me, a writer is a person with a message or a story that they're highly motivated to tell, with the talent, ability, and tech savvy to get it down on paper or computer file, fiction or nonfiction. Tenacity is what gets it done. It's essential. You have to have a story, and you want to have to tell it, because you really have to go through a lot of hoops to get this done. Not the easiest process.
What was the aha moment that provoked you to write a book?
Well, when I was teaching, I taught forensic science. What I did was I created mystery stories that had to be solved using forensic science in my classes. And I looked at some of these stories, and of course, the person who made me a lifetime reader was Nancy Drew. So I was kind of comparing my stories to Nancy Drew, and I said, I can do this. I'm back to that theme of if they can do it, why can't I? What I did was I took one of my stories that I wrote for my class, and I took a course in novel writing, and I wrote the book, and there we are.
When you're writing, do you give any thought to the factors that would make the book marketable?
Absolutely. This is really, if you want to get your book out there and sold, you have to think about that. You have to create lovable characters, or at least characters that engage you. You can have hateful characters too, but the characters have to engage. You need page-turning plots and interesting settings. This is what seems to grab readers if you get that message across in your book blurb. If you get those ideas into that book blurb, it's like the elevator pitch, in 5 sentences. Get that person to buy your book. But if you get those across, your book will be successful.
Now, do the books you read influence your writing style?
Yeah, absolutely. As a writer, I'm always trying to improve my craft. So like any writer, I'm an avid reader. I always see some literary devices and styles that I like to incorporate into my writing. I do this all the time.
What do you hope to achieve with all of this?
I am fortunate enough to have found venues to present and sell my books. It's either school fairs or church fairs and book events. This affords me the joy of seeing my books read, getting helpful feedback, and sharing ideas with other authors.
So how much work is involved in actually writing a book?
It takes me about 2 years to get the first draft down. I make outlines to make the plots flow and do the research to get the background history, science, and setting into the story. Then I have to take the characters I create and help them in sympathetic ways to move the plot along. The research takes time, and it can remove writer's block. Some authors ask me if I ever had writer's block and what do I do about it. And basically what I say is I don't care what your story is about. Think about your setting and research the setting. I don't care where the book is set. There's going to be some information about background. And that sometimes can inspire you to change your plot a little bit and to flesh it out. So I think research is a very important part of writing a book. And I'm a very organized writer. I have outlines and flow charts, and because it's a mystery and everything has to make sense at the end. You can't throw things into a mystery that just go nowhere, and you can't come up with an answer that came from nowhere. So you have to be organized.
Now, did your environment or upbringing play any major role in your writing?
Yes, I went to Catholic school. St. Basilius, if you think about the term, there is no St. Basilius, but I made her up. She's the patron saint of mimes. There's a lot of silliness in this book, but fun silliness. So I went to the Catholic schools all the way through, and so that kind of inspired me to use my experiences because many of them were interesting, many of them were funny. I wrote an introduction to the book, and it talks about an experience that I had in Catholic school back in 1947. Certainly, that environment inspired this story, and of course, my background in science and my love of history play into my writing a great deal.
What can you tell us about this genre and why you prefer to write in this genre?
I think it's basically because of the fact that Nancy Drew made me this lifetime reader. I have always loved mysteries. Obviously, I'm teaching forensic science. I think that authors choose the genre that they write in based on their environment and their personal histories. Besides loving Nancy Drew and loving mystery stories, it's what I enjoy most in a book. This genre, mystery, the puzzles, the science that's used, all of this kind of stuff appeals to me in a way that I like to write these page-turning books. And that's basically what my books are. You start it, and most people will tell me, the reviews I get is, once you start it, you can't put it down. And of course, they're short enough because they're written for young readers that they read it in one night. So it's a satisfying read. It's the books I loved when I was a kid, and I'm writing for kids. So that's why I chose that genre.
What's been your most rewarding experience since publishing this book?
Next to being on the author show, actually, it's good reviews. I love a good review. I had The first review that was written of this book was a woman who's written reviews for all of my books, and I trust her to write something that's not just going to be lots of flowery phrases, but she's going to find the flaws in the book as she sees them, and she's going to give me a good critique, which is important. All authors need to have a good constructive critique. But the first words that she said in the review was, "I love this story." And that is just the most rewarding thing that you can hear, is people saying, "When are you going to write the next one?" I get that a lot too. So that's really wonderful to hear that.
So how would you describe your writing style?
Page-turning adventure with characters you fall in love with, laced with facts that I sneak in at every opportunity. I had one reviewer say that. You really do sneak in a lot of facts. And of course, as a teacher, I can't help myself. I do that. I like to write something that's very fast-moving, and then I like to put the characters in so that you want to find out what happens to them in the end. When I talk to other authors, we talk about this a lot. Your characters have to, no matter how fancy your plot is or intricate, your characters have to move it along, and there has to be like a personal connection between the reader and your characters.
So now, are your characters pure fiction, or do you draw from people you know in real life?
Oh, I think it's both. It's people you know, and then you embellish upon them. I have done writing workshops with kids, and I tell them, take your best friend and write down their characteristics that you like and dislike, and then start changing them around, and you'll come up with a character. So I think that's basically what happens. And then people also ask me a question about, is my main character me? Because I always have a point of view character. My books are all in the first person. You can't help but put yourself into your characters. So you try not to, but the most challenging thing is when you have a group of characters, is to create characters that are different from each other. Because otherwise all the characters seem the same, and the readers are very bright, and they pick that up right away.
So in your opinion, who should buy this book?
Anyone who loves adventure and mystery with a sense of the past. For some adult readers, nostalgia. It's really a nostalgia book. I wrote an introduction, and in it I talk about an experience that I remember in 1947 where my father came to pick me up in his pickup truck in a snowstorm. I was thinking about that one day, and that's really what got me thinking about my Catholic school adventures and the things that I did when I was a bad girl or a good girl. So people who like that kind of story, a little bit of nostalgia. To answer your question, just simply, it's young readers and those people who are interested in reading young reader literature, because there are a lot of adults who will do that. They will read literature that's written for younger people because it's less complicated.
Do you have a website?
Yes, it's just my name, lindamariafrank.com, and it connects to places where you can buy the book.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Linda Maria Frank, and she is the author of The Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island. Linda, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Go out there, buy The Buccaneers of St. Frederick Island today, and please share this interview with your friends so that they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. Selected interviews can also be found on major platforms like Amazon Fire TV, the Roku channel, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many more. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, The Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.